All right, today you will be working in groups. So your group of 5 or 4 or however many are sitting in your group of desks are going to go to my website. Under my website, you find your 6th hour tab. And this is where I'll have put this video. Hopefully you find that. There is also a PowerPoint which gives you the instructions written out. You need to click the arrow on the PowerPoint and you will pull up a document that looks not like that. That's Skype. Well, why don't I just download it? I'm going to, and then you click open. All right, so serving up symbols. This is what we're doing today. Open to page 10 in your text packet. Read the paragraph and chart on page 10. What we need to do for this is take a look at this chart, and you need to interpret from the meaning what exactly each thing is measuring. So it looks like this. And you will open something up that looks like this. Right? So you have a symbol, you have a sentence that talks about the meaning, and then the units. So the first one is number of students who have passed through the line in M minutes. What you can do is underline and identify the things that can actually be measured. We can count students, we can count minutes. So our units, the actual things we're measuring, are students per minute. And this little line means per. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's 2 things. Students per minute. How many of these things happen compared to these things? Boys per day, right? These are the actual things we're measuring. We're measuring students in minutes. Sometimes it's just one thing. In this example, you can only measure the number of food servers, cafeteria workers, okay? So this one would just be food servers. So your first task is to go through this, and you should get through this in about 10 minutes. Just write down, for each one, what is the actual thing we're measuring? Minutes. This one would just be minutes, all right? Underline it and write it right here. The second part of your assignment is due next class. So first you fill out the chart on page 10. I will be checking that. I'll also be collecting today's homework tomorrow. The second part is on page 11. I think I'm going to change this a little bit. For this class, I want you to do numbers 1 and 2. So, and we'll do 1 and 2 together, and then do the chart where it tells you to make your own expression. So, on page 11, we have a problem that looks like this. Using the given symbols, it is possible to write many different algebraic expressions. We're using the symbols from this chart. They symbolize something. We're using the symbols. We're going to add, subtract, multiply, divide them. And we're going to find what that means in real life. Because in algebra, what we write in algebra also has a meaning in real life. So we need to take a look at this. Well, we're taking whatever G stands for plus B. When you're adding, that means that you combine 2 things together. So when I say I'm doing G plus B, that means I'm combining whatever G is with whatever B is. So if you take a look at the chart right here, we're going to combine G and B. Well, G is the number of girls that buy lunch, and B is the number of boys that buy lunch. Oh, well, if I combine the number of boys that buy lunch and the girls that buy lunch, that's all the people. So when we combine G and B, the meaning of that is all the students, right? All the students that buy lunch. That. And this should be written down on a separate sheet of paper, because you may have to turn in the questions from, you will, or you probably will have to turn in the questions on page 11. And I spelled lunch wrong. That's okay. We'll switch the N and the C later. All right, so G plus B is all the students that buy lunch, because we know that we combine whatever G and B is. Well, the next part, the bottom part, says we do C times B. We're taking groups of C times the number of groups of B. Well, we have to figure out what those groups are. Well, C is the number of classes per lunch period. So that's a class is a group of kids, all right? And then the number of lunch periods. We need to multiply those together, right? Well, it makes sense that if we have more than one lunch period, we can multiply that times the number of classes per lunch period. So C times B, we take the number of classes per lunch period. So let's say there's 10 classes per lunch period. All right, there's 10 classes of kids, but there's 2 lunch periods. All right, so we'd multiply that times the number of lunch periods to find total number of classes right? We'd find the total number of classes that have lunch periods. Well, okay, so we found the top. What we get when we add G and B, we take all the students that buy lunch, and then when we multiply the number of classes, I'm sorry, this should be a P, times the number of periods, we would find the total number of classes, right? Now what we need to do is division. That's what this line means. We need to divide all the students that buy lunch by the total number of classes. And if you think about it, well, let's say we found out that there are 300 students that buy lunch. All right? And we figured out by multiplying 300 boys and girls. And then we found out by multiplying 10 classes per lunch period times 2 lunch periods that there are 20 classes altogether. You have to figure this out. Well, if I take the number of students and divide it by the number of classes, your answer would be, and here's your solution, like pips, your solution would be, oh, well, if I take the number of students and divide it by, into classes, I divide each kid into classes, we're going to find out how many kids on average, how many students are in each class. Okay, you have to take this step by step. So your task today is to look at symbols and look at operations and say, what do these mean and what does this mean? Well, I take whatever this is and I combine it. I take whatever this is and multiply it by this number of groups. And then what this means is you divide it. You take whatever you get here and split it into groups of whatever you get here. So let's take one last look at your assignment in the Mathematics Vision Project. Page 11. So this one would say S plus F plus L. We know that when we're adding, it means we're combining. So you find out what S is, what F is, and what L is, and think to yourself, what happens when I combine these 3 things? Next, I want you to come up with an expression. First of all, take a look at what symbols you have and what you could find out from these symbols. For example, you could say, I want to find out how much a complete meal is. I could look at the number of entrees. So let's say I think a complete meal is an entree, a side dish, and a beverage, right? Well, what if I want to find out how many items there are to buy for lunch? Well, we can buy entrees, side dishes, and beverages. What I could say is I add NE plus NS plus NB. So I would put that as my expression, NE plus NS plus NB. My description would be the total number of items available at lunch. So that's your job. Do whatever the best way to do that is, okay, take a symbol and I want to add that to something else, or I want to multiply this times something else, all right? And once you take the symbols and you do operations with them, I want to tell you to tell me what that would mean. Get started. So for tomorrow, I want you to do 1 and 2, 4 expressions here, extra credit for these 2.